This is the Oppo Find X5. It's a flagship phone, although its specs and price aren't quite as high-end as its sibling, the Find X5 Pro. So does that make the regular X5 a better deal? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our full review. The Oppo Find X5 is actually the sequel to the Find X3, because the number 4 is unlucky in China. This phone has already been out for a while in that neck of the woods, but now it's made its way worldwide. It's made from glass, but the frosted finish lends it a unique, fuzzy texture, which is soft and doesn't collect fingerprints easily. The back curves slightly into the glossy aluminum frame, and the phone feels overall sleek and elegant. Oppo also tries to catch the eye with the unusual shape of the camera bump. You are missing something here that you'd get on the Pro version though, IP68 rated protection against water and dust. Another difference from the Pro model is the display. Here you get a 6.55-inch AMOLED with a 1080p resolution, Gorilla Glass Victus protection, and a fast 120Hz refresh rate. It's a little smaller than the Pro's display, and it's not an LTPO panel, meaning that the high refresh rate isn't as adaptive. You basically get the 120Hz for your smooth swiping and scrolling, and it'll dial down to 60Hz when it can to save energy. There's no support for high frame rate gaming here either. Still, this display is quite nice. The picture is sharp and you get great contrast as well as HDR10+ support and 10-bit color. The brightness is also respectable. We maxed out at 500 nits with the manual slider, and that can boost to a flagship grade 800 nits in auto mode. The Find X5 can also boost the brightness of the display when you're playing HDR video. This makes the videos pop a bit more at the expense of some battery life. There are plenty of options when it comes to colors, and you can achieve great color accuracy here. And in addition to the presets, there's an option called Nature Tone Display, which will adjust the color temperature based on your ambient light. For audio, the Find X5 has a pair of stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos support. They're fairly balanced and scored good on our loudness test. The sound quality is great too, with even some decent bass.
I'm wide awake, but you're a nightmare.
The chipset is another thing that sets the vanilla Find X5 apart from the Pro version. Rather than a new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, here you get a Snapdragon 888, which was the chart topper in last year's flagships. Still, I doubt that most people could tell the difference in real-world use. The performance here is excellent, and multitasking and heavy gaming are no problem. Plus, the thermals are pretty good too. The Oppo Find X5 has a sizable 4800 mAh battery. It's a bit smaller capacity than the 5000 of the Pro model, but the vanilla Find X5 was still able to earn a great score of 108 hours in our battery life tests. Charging here is quite fast. The X5 comes with an 80-watt SuperVOOC fast charger, which was able to charge the phone nearly to full, 94%, in half an hour. There's also support for 30-watt wireless charging too. The interface of the Oppo Find X5 is ColorOS 12.1 over Android 12. It's nearly identical to the ColorOS 12 that we've seen on other devices, which was based on Android 11. ColorOS brings some stylistic touches here and there. The settings menu is colorful, which makes sense if you think about it. And you can customize the appearance of the UI even further too, through personalization options. It's not all about the looks. The Privacy Dashboard, which is an Android 12 feature, organizes all of your permissions options into one convenient spot. There are quite a few gestures, but one I found useful is the icon pull down. It's great for reaching those icons up near the top with one hand. For your biometrics, the Find X5 has an under-display fingerprint reader. It's fast and responsive. You can also hold down your finger to open a quick launch menu with shortcuts to apps or functions. And for storage, you can get 128 or 256 gigs on board, but that's not expandable. On the back, the Find X5 has a 50-megapixel main cam with regular OIS, a 13-megapixel telephoto cam with 2x zoom, and a 50-megapixel ultra-wide camera, which has autofocus. The vanilla X5 doesn't have the extra fancy OIS on the main cam that you'd get on the Pro, but otherwise this camera hardware is the same. The main cam's performance is good, but the quality isn't as high as competing flagships. There's a solid amount of detail and good dynamic range. But the photos sometimes come out softer than we'd like, and the colors are more saturated than natural looking. Also, the Find X5 tends to go for a darker exposure, and that can sometimes result in underdeveloped shadows. Portraits from the main cam aren't too impressive. The subject sometimes comes out too soft, and we wish the edge detection was more precise. You can also take portraits through the telephoto cam, and these are a little bit softer even. A proper telephoto zoom is nice to have, and it provides a clear advantage over a digital cropped zoom. The images are fairly sharp and offer a good amount of detail. However, like the main cam, the images are somewhat dark, and you can end up with black shadows. Photos from the ultra-wide cam are great, with excellent sharpness and detail for this sort of camera. And you have colors that are in line with the other two cameras. Unfortunately, the dark exposure is also an issue here. Because the ultra-wide cam has autofocus, it can be used to take close-up macro shots, with much more detail than you'd get on those low-res dedicated macro cams which are popular these days. In low-light conditions, the Oppo Find X5 will automatically apply night mode processing to your photos. Shots from the main cam are excellent, with low noise, plenty of fine detail, and impressive sharpness. Shadows are well exposed, and the highlights are balanced. The quality when zooming at night isn't the best. Usually, the phone will take a digital crop from the main cam. On occasion, it will use the actual telephoto, and surprisingly, these shots are sharper and clearer. The Oppo Find X5 has one of the best performing ultra-wides we've seen in the dark. It impresses with great sharpness, punchy colors, and an excellent level of detail. Noise is low and the dynamic range is wide, with good-looking light sources. Selfies from the 32-megapixel front-facing cam are decent, with good-looking colors, low noise, and wide dynamic range. We wish they were a bit sharper though. The Find X5 doesn't support 8K video recording, but the 4K footage from the main cam is solid. There's good sharpness and detail overall, vibrant colors, and decent dynamic range. 4K videos from the telephoto cam are excellent in quality. We like the colors and contrast, and we're impressed by the sharpness and detail. The dynamic range is wide too. 4K clips from the ultra-wide camera have an almost identical rendition, just a bit softer, and the exposure is a little darker. Still, the overall quality is impressive for this sort of camera. So that's the Oppo Find X5. It's a solid flagship with pretty much all the bells and whistles. The main shortcomings are that the display's refresh rate isn't as adaptive as an LTPO panel. There's no IP-rated protection, and you have last year's Snapdragon 888. And those things aren't a deal breaker for a lot of people. What does matter though is the price, and that is where Oppo sort of dropped the ball here. This phone is as expensive as some of the most popular flagships in the industry, and at this price point the competition has the edge. Maybe after the Find X5 gets a little bit cheaper, it'll be easier to recommend. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.